Hello and welcome to the webinar Fact or Fiction, Flat Rate Increases Profit, presented by Anya Smith, owner-operator at All Clear Plumbing.
Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to everybody. This is Fact or Fiction. We're asking the question today, does flat rate increase profit in your plumbing business? To sort of give you a brief overview of how I'm going to approach this topic today, I'm going to kind of talk about it from three main conceptual points of view: theory, planning, and execution. So how do we make flat rate work for us and increase our profit? How do we prepare our team and our business for that transition? And then how do we launch with success so that we're putting our best foot forward in this new way of operating our business? First, I'm going to introduce myself. As I said, I am Anya Smith. I am an owner-operator at All Clear Plumbing. Business started in 2012 with just my dad and a truck. And we stayed to about 2 trucks until I joined the company in 2015. At that time, we didn't have any full-time office staff. We were really just those 2 trucks running around doing everything that we could do. In the ensuing 5 years, we've grown the business to 10 service crews, a new construction division. We've got a property with about 8,000 square feet with a warehouse and everything. So we've grown quite a bit in the past 5 years since I've joined the company. And my parents have sort of asked me to pump the brakes a little bit until they're ready to fully retire. So in all of the spare time that creates for me, I work under the brand TradeBiz Toolbox as an author, speaker, and consultant. And that's where you may have come across me before if you're a regular Plumber Magazine reader. I am a regular contributor to both the web and print editions. And some of my most popular columns there are about flat rate, confessions of a flat rate convert, your flat rate questions answered, and I think, is flat rate the silver bullet your business is looking for, something like that. All 3 of those are flat rate topics, and I get regular comments and questions via email about those. So I thought that flat rate would make a good topic for today. So when I hear, well, is flat rate going to make me more profitable? I think of it as this, like, okay, so is flat rate this magical bean, like Jack and the Beanstalk, that I just plant this little seed of an idea in my company and all of a sudden I'm going to grow a money tree that leads me to the land of profits, right? And while that's a really nice idea, I think we can all agree that that's a bit of a fairy tale, right? Because when you put it that way, it does sound too good to be true. Oh, if I just implement flat rate pricing, it's going to fix all my profitability issues and I can sleep easier at night and finally buy that beach house I've been keeping my eye on, right? So it's not going to work that way if your real issue is leadership, discipline, motivation, organization, or cultural issues, right? Odds are that pricing is a symptom of a bigger issue in your company. And until you are willing to address that deeper issue, there's not going to be a magic seed you can plant to grow a money tree. There's no silver bullet. There's no holy grail. There's no fairy tale ending out there. It all comes back to hard work, guys. I hate to break that to you. But the good news is that flat rate can be a strong catalyst for change in your company. It's so much easier to address some of these deep-seated behavioral issues when you're also making a big operational shift, right? It's a little bit of it's a back door into being able to address, you know, a toxic employee or a lack of discipline on your team, a lack of operational discipline. Maybe it's you have poor organization around your invoicing habits. These are all great opportunities for flat rate to give you a chance to create a framework and change those operational issues. So how do we tend to this garden? How do we grow this profit tree? It's not going to grow like a weed. It's going to be a little bit more like a orchid or a rose, or pick your favorite finicky bush or plant out there. But it is possible to grow, right? The answer to profitability from flat rate comes through good planning, good training, and consistent management. Without those, flat rate is going to fall flat on its face. It's not going to work well in your company. It certainly isn't going to be that catalyst for change that you're looking for. But with these things, it is very possible that flat rate could improve the profitability in your business. So let's dive in to how we work through each one of these challenging issues. So what does it mean to plan for flat rate? Well, we're going to do a lot of research and we're going to do a little bit of math. Plumbers' favorite things, right? So the first thing I would caution you to do is to choose your price book provider carefully. The only thing worse for employees than a huge change or shift in their work life is when two of those come back to back. So you don't want to pick the first price book that you come across, implement in your company, find out that it's all wrong for your how you like to invoice, all wrong for documentation purposes. You know, it's poorly organized and no one can find anything. You don't want to find this stuff out afterward. You want to really do your due diligence up front and look at a lot of different systems. They all should offer a demo or a sample or something that will help you really dig in and understand the system at a deeper level before you buy. And I encourage you to take a good amount of time doing this. If you're not familiar with what a flat rate price book looks like, then one, you certainly aren't going to be able to build your own. That is a very, very challenging thing to take on. Please don't underestimate it. We did that. We ended up building our own price book after working with a couple of different providers in my business, and it was a full-time employee working on it for close to 6 months before it was even ready to launch. And bless her heart, she still spends, I would say, 20 to 30% of her time managing the price book. Now, the benefit to that is we own it and we have full control over it and all of those things. But in hindsight, I'm not sure I would have made that choice because it's a little hard to know what you're getting into. Different companies, though, offer different options. They organize information differently. They use different terminology and language for both parts and for tasks. Some of them itemize parts and some of them don't. Some have very vague descriptions. Some have very detailed descriptions. Some of them make it easy to edit those descriptions on your invoice, and some of them you're stuck with whatever their description is. So you want to make sure that you're choosing a price book that is going to provide you with an invoice that's going to make sense to your customers, that's going to make sense to your plumbers or your technicians. All of this is stuff that if you haven't dug into the world of flat rate price books yet, you probably haven't thought about. And I just want to prepare you for the fact that that due diligence period is probably going to be longer than you think. I would encourage you to take a few weeks and to really dig in and look at a bunch of different systems, ask a ton of questions. You may have to circle back to some of the earlier ones, but take a systematic approach to choosing this very important tool for your business. The second point I would look at in the planning stage is to update your hourly rate, especially if it has been a year or two since you've done so. Some of you, it may have been longer than that, but we definitely need to run those numbers again. If you're not comfortable finding your break even or your profitability point and you're just picking numbers out of thin air, I would encourage you to find a resource for that. That can be a bookkeeper or accountant who's comfortable and familiar with your systems and your books. There are some online tutorials out there for how to calculate that. It's a little bit of a project, and it's kind of can be a lot to wrap your mind around the first time you do it if you've never done that before. But you're going to have a hard time being profitable, whether you're on time and materials or a flat rate system, if you don't know what you need to be charging in order to be profitable. You may be confused right now saying, well, I'm leaving time and materials. Why do I need to look at my hourly rate in order to build a price book? And that's because price books are actually just built off of your hourly rate. So if you think about it this way, what a price book company has actually done is go in and essentially created an estimate based on average times that it takes to do a certain task. And they've pre-created an estimate for you for each one of those tasks that you do in your business, whether that is fixing an under the sink issue in a kitchen, whether that's rebuilding a toilet, maybe that's replacing a sewer line. They've done the hard work of putting together the sort of, it takes this amount of time, this many labor hours, and this much in materials. All you're doing is inputting the variable of your hourly rate. So it's pre-calculating prices for you. So it's a little bit of a like garbage in, garbage out, right? If you're taking the same hourly rate you've always charged that's not profitable for you, and you're inputting it into this averaged system of it takes X amount of hours in order to, rebuild this toilet, you're probably not going to see a bump in profit. One of the beautiful things about a flat rate system is it allows you to update your hourly rate without giving your customers the sticker shock of quoting an hourly rate, right? And they're not nitpicking your time that you're on the job and things like that. So you still have to dig into the math of that and make sure that you're charging correctly for your time so that you have the possibility of being profitable. The last part of the planning stage is creating an implementation plan. You might say, well, I thought we were planning. What do you mean we have to plan? You have to plan for the plan while you're planning. Just roll with it here. What I mean is, once you've done all of this groundwork, all of these things that we've talked about so far really are happening in your management team. They're happening amongst the ownership team, the highest levels of leadership. We haven't really engaged the rest of our team yet. This is most likely going to be a cultural bomb going off in your company, right? This is not a small shift. So you have to have a plan for implementing well so that you're not just, you don't want to just throw a new price book on the desk of your, your lead plumber and saying, starting tomorrow, we're rolling with this. That's not going to work. It's going to go horribly. Nothing's going to change. So that's what we're going to get into next. Stage 2, and really the first part of implementing this in your company, is training. And this is the bulk of the work that you're going to do in your implementation. So you're going to continue to work behind the scenes with the price book company to make sure you've got the right product that you're bringing to your company, you're understanding it in depth, you're getting comfortable with it and doing what they call training the trainer, right? You are the trainer or someone in your company is the trainer. So during this time, the first stages of implementation and training is to train the trainer, to have someone in your company who's taking responsibility for being the expert here, okay? And then you're going to lay the groundwork with everyone in the company, right? So just like you have either gone through or are currently on the journey of wrapping your head around why flat rate is the way to go, your staff needs to make a similar mind shift. And that's not going to happen because you snap your fingers and walk in one day and say, we're switching to flat rate, right? Like that's probably not going to go over super well. So you want to approach this gingerly, but you also want to approach it from the standpoint of here's why flat rate is actually better for the customers. Here's what flat rate is going to allow us to do in the company that's going to make your job easier in the future. We all want to know what's in it for us, right? So you certainly don't want to necessarily lead the conversation with your team by saying, like, well, it's gonna make the company more profitable, because what they're gonna hear is, oh, the owners want to line their pockets, right? So there's got to be a benefit to the employees. You're about to make their job a lot harder for at least a limited period of time because change is hard. So we need to lay the groundwork. And, I would say that should probably be a series of meetings. They're not going to get it the first time, just like you didn't necessarily get it the first time you attended a seminar or a webinar, or the first time you read an article about flat rate, right? It may have started to penetrate your mind a little bit that, oh, maybe this flat rate thing isn't so bad after all. Maybe this is the answer. Remember, you have to take them on the exact same journey. The next thing you want to look at is your appointment workflow. So I'm a big believer that without this really not only deserves to be its own slide, but maybe its own slide deck, because if you don't take advantage of the fact that you can provide upfront predictable pricing, that you can provide comprehensive options to your customer with flat rate pricing, then you're really negating the huge benefit of flat rate pricing from a customer service standpoint. So what do I mean by that? One of the big benefits of going to flat rate is the ability to get the customer to agree to a price before you do the work. The workflow of a flat rate appointment is critical. Here's how I lay it out for my team. I say your first job is to greet the customer according to our code of conduct. Eye contact. We used to shake hands. We don't do that anymore. Putting your booties on in front of them, greeting them by name, introducing yourself. Your next job is to look at the problem that they are presenting, understand it, and diagnose what you believe the issue to be. The next step of the appointment is building options for the customer using the price book and letting them have control of how the appointment goes from there. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit because there's a few things in there, right? So one, we are giving them control to say, I'm not comfortable with what you're recommending here. I want to stop the appointment. And at that point, all you've done is a diagnostic. You can charge them for the diagnostic and walk away. Hopefully that's not how it goes. But again, you're giving the customer control. they have probably called you for something that they're not thrilled about doing. They're probably in a bad mood when you arrive. Handing the control over to them is a huge psychological boost in sort of flipping the script on their mood and how they feel about you being in their home, right? So that's a big piece of it. The other piece of it is that by getting them to agree to a price before you do the work, you have far fewer concerns with people complaining about the price or arguing the bill afterward, right? You have far fewer concerns with them standing over your shoulder, sort of, tapping their watch, wondering what's taking you so long. They're not nitpicking the fact that you spent 10 minutes out in your truck, looking for a part or whatever the thing is. All of those problems go away if you discuss pricing at the beginning of the appointment and set that expectation. The other thing, and this is where the profitability comes in huge, you don't necessarily want to just upsell the customer for no reason. I mean, obviously you want to be honest about it, but one of the things I try to get through my guys' heads, and it took a while, this was probably the longest path of training that we had, was it is not your place to decide what should go into their home, right? It's not your place to choose whether it's a basic stainless or chrome faucet or whether it's a super fancy growy Venetian bronze whatever faucet, right? That needs to be their decision. And by talking about options with the customer, you're again giving them control, but you're also giving them permission to upgrade their appointment or upgrade their fixture, which is something that they may be inclined to do. So there's a huge opportunity there to increase your average ticket just by saying, okay, so this is the basics of what we need to do to get you up and running today. But here's some other options if you wanted to take this opportunity to upgrade, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. We don't want to do high pressure sales, but without flat rate and without being able to present those options clearly, you're usually missing out on those opportunities. So I called flat rate a framework earlier, and that's especially true here. The workflow is the biggest place where that framework, that operational framework really changes and has the potential to make a huge impact on your revenue and your profit. The next meeting or set of meetings that you want to have is hands-on practice. So, keep in mind your audience here, right? These are plumbers and technicians. The next meeting or set of meetings that you want to have should include hands-on practice. Consider your audience. These are plumbers and technicians. They're used to working with their hands. They learn by doing. Odds are that is their learning style. So you can't just Vanna White your new price book and expect them to get it the first time. Before they are expected to use this new price book in the field, you want to give them the chance to do a few dummy invoices in the safety of the office with that internal expert, with their management team around them to help answer questions. That's going to build their confidence, and they're going to be that much more useful in being able to implement this new appointment frame workflow framework that we talked about. I go so far as to do role playing, mostly because the guys really appreciate it when I make a fool out of myself in the front of the training room. So you do you, but you know, we did, I believe, 3 like 1 to 2 hour sessions with hands-on training with our price book before we launched, and it really does help a lot. And now that has actually become part of our onboarding process for new employees, is taking the time to familiarize them with the price book before we let them out into the field. The final step to this portion of the implementation plan, the training portion, is to celebrate. Your launch day for the new price book should be a huge deal in your company. You're catering in breakfast, you've got balloons and streamers everywhere, maybe there's a button or a special shirt or a funny hat that everybody is wearing. I don't care what it is. Do something that fits the tone of your company. But more than the morale and the getting everybody pumped about it, that's super important for their buy-in. But more than anything, you need to send a message that today is a new day. That yesterday was the past. Today is the future. We're not doing time and materials anymore. I don't expect to see another invoice come across my desk that way. From now on, this is what we're using. No going back, right? So by making a real celebration out of launch day, you're really drawing that line in the sand, right? You're sending a very strong signal to your team that you expect this to be the new wave of the future. The third part is really an ongoing part, and it is by far the hardest part, I won't lie, and that is ongoing consistent management. And this is where, going back to what I said early in the presentation, where if the real thing holding you back from profitability is behavioral issues amongst your team or attitude issues amongst your team or a lack of leadership, that's what we actually need to change, right? We're using the price book as a catalyst to do that. So this is where the rubber really hits the road. You've now laid, 10, 12 weeks of groundwork to getting this thing up and running. You've drawn your line in the sand with that onboarding or that launch day celebration. Now we, as the leaders in the company, the management in the company, need to be accountability partners. We need to be occasional handholders and therapists. We need to be leaders and managers for the team to make sure that this transition is something that they feel comfortable doing their jobs in. What frustrates employees the most is a lack of leadership and a feeling of failure. No one likes to feel like they're not doing their job well. That's a huge hit to the ego. It's a hugely demoralizing, right? So this change is fundamental enough to your company that it's a little bit inevitable that some of your employees are going to have days where they feel like they're failing. They're frustrated. They can't find something. They're not sure if they charged right. They, whatever the issue is, the conversation didn't go right with the customer, or they forgot to clear it with the customer before they started the repair, whatever the issue is, and all of those things will happen. It's your job to help them through that struggle and to make sure they know that you have their back. So the primary element to that is follow-up. Ongoing training after launch day. You did those couple of meetings with hands-on practice. You did the talk where you explained to everybody, why the mindset shift of why this is better for the company and for the customers is super important. But more than anything, like that, you have to remember that doesn't stop just because we're past launch day. Okay. We all make commitments to ourselves in our head all the time. We may even say them out loud to other people. I'm going to go for a walk every day. I'm going to stop eating dessert. I'm going to be nicer to my mother-in-law. Whatever your thing is, you've probably made a promise to yourself saying, I'm going to commit to doing something in the future. And then maybe you fail sometimes, right? Maybe you aren't super consistent at that. This is your opportunity to be that accountability partner for your employees. And then amongst the management team, you also need to have each other's back. So don't underestimate that, and don't think that this is we just have to get through this implementation and launch period and then we're gold after that. No, unfortunately, it does take ongoing follow-up, both one-on-one and in a group setting. I would continue to we do about once a month our meeting, once a month at the very least once a quarter. Our weekly meeting is price book training or appointment, customer service training or whatever. The thing is, this is such a critical piece of your company that you can really frame it however you want, whether it's about invoices, whether it's about customer service, whether it's about best practices for technical training. You can tie it all back to your price book. So just make sure that that becomes part of the culture of your meetings moving forward. And whenever you see an opportunity to positively reinforce good behavior in the price book, you're using it. Listen, discuss, and support are really, three sides of the same idea. Again, change is hard for employees. They are going to need an ear sometimes. You need to be willing to discuss the struggles that they're having and determine if it's something that is just a growing pain or if it's an actual issue that needs to be addressed. Again, this is a catalyst for change. We don't want to use it as, we don't want to accidentally just embed new dysfunction in our company, right? We don't want to trade one set of problems for a different set of problems. So if you're not listening, discussing, and supporting with your team what they're struggling with, what they like and don't like, then you're not optimally using this opportunity. It's got to be an open dialogue. Now, that doesn't mean the guy that comes to you on day 3 and is like, I hate that. It takes forever. It's not easy to use, blah, 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 blah. That guy just needs to hear it's going to get easier. You're still getting used to it. You can do this. I believe in you. You're so good at blah, blah, blah. That person just needs encouragement. But you do want to pay attention to, hey, when I rang up this repair the other day, it was the only thing I could find that matched the problem that I was doing, but the price just really seemed off to me, right? That is a conversation you want to pay attention to and really dig in and support that employee, because encouraging that kind of behavior is going to help you optimize and, again, make sure that you're not accidentally embedding a whole new set of problems into your company. It's giving you the chance to have more hands-on and open dialogue with your employees. So, is flat rate pricing the secrets to a profitable plumbing company, fact or fiction? Well, it depends. Implementation is what actually matters. It's not necessarily about flat rate versus time and materials. I do believe that you can be successful in both. I am a believer in flat rate because I think more than anything, it actually improves the customer service experience. That's for me what actually, when the rubber hits the road, the thing that matters most. And the reason, and was really the driving decision maker for me and my business. But more than anything, you have to make sure that you've got the management practice, leadership, training, and and the planning to make sure that it's all being launched well in order to see it help you increase your profits in your business. Without these 3 stages of implementation, then you're not going to see any change, and you're just going to have gone through a very frustrating and likely costly period in the history of your business that isn't really going to move the needle. So that's the takeaway that I want you to get from this training today. I hope that I've made a great case for that. And if you do have any follow-up questions or would like to talk to me about flat rate pricing or any other operational or marketing issues in your business, I'm always happy to talk. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar. I really appreciate your time, and I'm very proud of you for taking the time to work on your business and not just in your business. That's critically important for any leader. If you've either been asking questions in the questions panel, or if you would like to ask those now, we're going to round those up and answer those for you. You can also reach out to me via email at anya@tradebiztoolbox.com. That's always fine. I always welcome those conversations there as well. But don't be shy. If you have a question, chances are somebody else does on here as well. So I always like to encourage group conversations so that everybody can sort of see those answers. Thank you so much for your time today, and I'll see you guys next time.